So I think you have gone through the topic which we have.
Manpreet ma'am, I have unmuted you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So let me just quickly recapitulate the things which we did last time. So I was telling you reproduction in plants, sexual reproduction in plants. See, very important, you should know that what are we studying first of all, okay? So what do you mean when I say sexual reproduction in plants? So what do you mean by that in general? So it is the development of the fruit from the flower, कि एक flower से fruit कैसे बनता है. Clear? एक flower से, because we have seen in the fruit plants that first flower comes and then it changes to fruit. So एक flower जो होता है उससे fruit कैसे बनता है, and in that fruit what is that seed part? Seeds उसमें जो होते हैं वो कहाँ से बनते हैं, किस चीज से बनते हैं, and from where it get the energy, from where does it get the food that is in the seed part. So that all we are going to study. So let me just quickly recapitulate first of all. So I was telling you the parts of the flower. We are mainly concerned about male reproductive part and the female reproductive part of the flower. So androecium means the stamen part, which consists of anther and filament. It is known as androecium, that is the male reproductive part, and the female reproductive part is gynoecium. So what is happening? First of all, the very first step in the reproduction, sexual reproduction in plants is pollination. I told you what is pollination. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of, can be the same flower or the another flower. So there are two types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination, when the transfer of pollen grain is taking place from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant. And cross-pollination is when the transfer of pollen grains is taking place from the anther of one flower of one plant to the stigma of the another flower of another plant but of the same species. That is cross-pollination. Then differences, I hope you have gone through these. Now come to the main process of the fertilization, the main process of the sexual reproduction in plants, कि एक जो flower होता है उससे fruit कैसे बनता है. Okay, so listen to it very carefully. Very important process is this from the examination point of view also. So there will be some terms, some processes which you have to understand. So what is happening? So first step मैंने बताया कि जो first step होता है sexual reproduction in plants में, that is pollination. Pollination में क्या हो रहा है? Pollen grains are landing on the stigma. Very first step is pollen grains are landing on the stigma of the flower, either by any agent, either by wind. It can be self-pollination, it can be cross-pollination. So when these pollen grains are landing on the stigma, then what happens? उसके बाद क्या होता है? So now you know that pollen grains which land on the stigma, they have to reach to the female egg cell, because this pollen grain is the source of the male gamete. अब male gamete कहाँ पे बन रहा है? Now see, so when pollen grain land on the stigma, what happen? They absorb water, swell and germinates to produce pollen tubes. अब जब pollen grains land हो जाते हैं stigma, so one of the pollen grain, what happens to it that वो water absorb करता है stigma से and it swells in size and it germinates one pollen tube. This is called pollen tube, which is coming down. So one pollen grain, it germinates to the pollen tube, and this pollen tube is developing throughout the style and it is going down into the ovary and ultimately it is reaching the embryo sac. So see the labeling part. This is the stigma, you know, this is the style, and this is the ovary. Now see the base part which is swollen here. The outermost part, that is called ovary. Okay, the outermost part of the base of the carpel is ovary, and then inside to the ovary, this part is called ovule, and the innermost part is called embryo sac. Clear? Again, I'm telling the outer part is called ovary. Inner to that, this part is called ovule, and inside the innermost part of the carpel is called embryo sac. And what is there in this embryo sac? Embryo sac, may you can see there are the small structures are there in between the embryo sac. What are these? Now here you can see 3 cells are here at the base of the embryo sac, okay, and 3 cells are on the top of the embryo sac, and 2 cells are here, two polar nuclei, these are called nucleus, okay. So 2 nuclei are there in the center. Now what are these? First of all, understand. So ये जो 3 cells हैं, these 2 cells, out of these 3 cells, one is the female egg cell, that is called the female gamete. You know, female gamete is the egg cell. So male gamete has to fuse with the egg cell, this one. And these 2 cells which are surrounding the egg cell, these two are called synergids. It is written here in the last point you see. So this whole structure, these 3 cells combinedly, they are known as egg apparatus. It is written here. Egg apparatus means one haploid egg and 2 synergids. I'm not telling you the process still. I'm just only telling you the parts. Which are the parts which are present inside the embryo sac? Embryo sac may 3 cells on the top, 3 cells on the bases, and 2 cells in the center. So 3 plus 3, 6 plus 2, 8. So now I'm telling you that female egg cell is present here, and 2 cells which are surrounding the female egg cell are called the synergids. Now what is the function of these 2 synergids? They guide the male gametes which are coming from the pollen grains. They guide the male gametes to fuse with the egg cell and one with the polar nuclei. Okay, again I'm saying that what is happening, first of all, pollen grains are landing on the stigma, then one pollen tube is going deep down, it is germinating, and in between this pollen tube, is pollen tube के बीच में, during the process of growth of the pollen tube, 2 male gametes are formed inside the pollen tube. Okay, 2 male gametes are formed inside the pollen tube when this pollen tube is germinating and it is going deep down into the embryo sac. Clear? So how many male gametes we have? We have 2 male gametes. So 2 male gametes are produced in this pollen tube. Earlier it was not there. Earlier we had only pollen grains. So first step is pollination, in which the pollen grains are landing on the stigma, and then they are absorbing water, they are getting swelled, and they are germinating to produce pollen tube. Now during this germination of pollen tube, in between the pollen tube, 2 male gametes are formed. ठीक है, 2 male gametes formed होते हैं, and now this pollen tube is going deep down into the embryo sac. So here, when it enters the embryo sac, it ruptures. यहाँ पे आके जो pollen tube है, जैसे ही वो enter करती है embryo sac में, it ruptures and it releases the 2 male gametes. जो इसके अंदर जो 2 male gametes आ रहे हैं, it releases after rupturing. So when now 2 male gametes we have in the embryo sac, out of that 1 male gamete will fuse with this egg cell, okay, which is present at the base. So one egg cell, a male gamete will fuse with this egg cell. Clear? Now this process here, it is called syngamy. This process here is called syngamy. Syngamy. So one male gamete is fusing here with this egg cell. That process is called syngamy. So means एक fertilization कहाँ पे हो रही है? At the base of the embryo sac. What is fertilization? It is the fusion of male gamete with the female egg cell. So one fertilization is taking place here, and that fertilization in which male gamete is fusing with the female egg cell, that is called syngamy. Now we are left with one more gamete. एक gamete fuse हो गया, एक gamete रह गया. Now the another male gamete, it will fuse with these two polar nuclei. ये जो दो polar nuclei हैं center में, इनके साथ fuse करेगा. The another male gamete will fuse with these two polar nuclei. So how many cells are fusing together? Two polar nuclei were already there and one male gamete also came. So how many in total? Three cells are fusing together. So it is termed as triple fusion. Clear? So this is also one more. This is the second fertilization which is taking place inside the embryo sac. So two processes, two fertilization processes are taking place inside the embryo sac. So these two processes, these two acts of fertilization are termed as double fertilization. Why we call it double? Because two types because two acts of fertilization are taking place inside the embryo sac. Clear? Now read these lines. You'll understand more. So first I told you when pollen grains are landing on the stigma, they absorb water, they swell and germinates to produce pollen tubes. One pollen tube grows into the stigma. So it grows into the stigma, passes through the style and move towards the ovary. Now two male gametes are formed inside the pollen tube. I told you that two male gametes are formed inside the pollen tube after reaching the ovary. जब ये pollen tube, it is reaching the ovary, pollen tube enters the ovule through the micropyle. You see here, this structure here is micropyle at the base of the embryo sac, this one. So from here, where this pollen tube is entering the embryo sac, this structure is known as micropyle. Okay, it is the opposite of the antipodal cells. These three are antipodal cells. Okay, so what is the function? I'll tell you. So after reaching the ovary, now pollen tube is reaching the ovary and pollen tube enters through the ovule through the micropyle, means through the base it will enter, and after penetration, penetration means when this pollen tube will enter, will pierce the membrane, which will break the membrane of the embryo sac and it will enter the embryo sac. That is called penetration. So when this penetration will take place, then what will happen? The tip of the pollen tube ruptures. I told you. So when it will enter the embryo sac, it will rupture and it will release two male gametes into the embryo sac. Clear? The mature embryo sac consists of an, अब इस embryo sac में क्या क्या है? So it contains one egg apparatus. Now what is egg apparatus? These three cells. These three cells together they are known as egg apparatus. अब इसमें क्या क्या है? One egg cell and two synergids. So one haploid egg and two synergids. I told you that gametes should be haploid. Then only the resulting zygote will be diploid, so that the number of chromosomes will be maintained in all the generations. Yeah, so that's why male and female gametes are always haploid and they fuse together to form diploid zygote. So what it contains, I'm telling you, the mature embryo sac consists of an egg apparatus, these three cells, in which one is egg cell in the center and two cells which are surrounding the egg cells. These are called synergids. Okay, they are supporting the egg cell and they are also guiding the male gametes which are entering from the micropyle. उनको guide भी कर रहे हैं to, they're leading it to the egg cell and another male gamete to the polar nuclei, and two polar nuclei are present and three antipodal cells. अब ये जो polar nuclei हैं, when they will fuse together, they will form endosperm. Endosperm क्या होता है? Endosperm is a stored food. अब एक seed के अंदर, now you know that when we buy the seeds from the market, अब वो seed means you cannot say that seeds are non-living because they are giving rise to a new plant. So we cannot say that they are non-living. So seeds are also breathing. Seeds always breathe because seeds are considered as living. They are not considered as non-living. So why they are considered as living? Because they have the ability to produce a new plant from the seed. So how द एम्ब्रियो इनसाइड द सीड, वो सीड के अंदर जो एम्ब्रियो है उसको अंदर फूड कैसे मिल रहा है. सो दिस इज द सोर्स. नाउ दीज टू पोलर न्यूक्लियाई is fusing with the male gamete. जो ये ट्रिपल फ्यूजन यहाँ पे हो रहा है and they are resulting into a tissue that is called endosperm, and that endosperm is, it act as a stored food. वो एक stored food की तरह काम करता है and it provides nourishment to the embryo inside the seed. So that's why that it is capable of being inside the seed for longer time because it has a source of food. So endosperm is a source of food for the embryo inside the seed. Now these three antipodal cells, ये जो तीन antipodal cells हैं, these three antipodal cells are also providing nourishment. Now what will happen जब endosperm form हो जाएगा, so then these three antipodal cells will also merge with the endosperm. वो endosperm के साथ merge कर जाते हैं. And these egg apparatus, अब यहाँ पे कौन सी process हो रही है? Syngamy. So one male gamete is fusing with the egg cell. So these three egg apparatus, it will form zygote. Means it will form the embryo inside the seed. जो plant निकलता है, that is resulting from these three cells only. Means female cell and the synergid cells, they fuse and they form the zygote. And these three, they form the endosperm, and antipodal cells also provide nourishment and they also merge with the endosperm. Okay, so now what is happening after that? During the act of fertilization, during the act of fertilization means when the male and female gamete, they are fusing together. So one male gamete fuses with the egg to form diploid zygote, that is called syngamy. You have to know these processes, that is double fertilization. Double fertilization में two processes है, syngamy and triple fusion. Then only it will be called double fertilization. So now what is happening? During the act of fertilization, one male gamete fuses with the egg. This process which is happening here, I told you, at the base of the embryo sac. So here, one male gamete is fusing with the female egg to form diploid zygote. Here, this process is called syngamy, and the diploid zygote develops into an embryo. So that gives you a new plant when the seed is sown. So the second male gamete fuses with the two polar nuclei at the center of the embryo sac to form the nucleus. And this process is called triple fusion because three cells are combining together here. Now this mechanism involving two acts of fertilization. So you know now that two acts of fertilization are taking place in an embryo sac. Now these two acts of fertilization is called double fertilization. Now after fertilization, zygote, अब क्या होता है? After fertilization, what is happening? Zygote develops into an embryo. Now this egg cell, it is fusing with the male gamete and it is forming a zygote, which is the plant which comes from the seed. That is due to this process which is happening here. That is due to syngamy, when male and female egg cell is fusing together. So that results into a zygote which develops into an embryo inside the seed. And ovule, this is called ovule. Now as it matures, so ovule, what it does, it forms a tough coat surrounding itself, कि अपने आसपास एक tough coat बना देता है. You know, seeds are tough, seeds are hard. When you touch the seeds, they are hard. So why they are hard? Because of this ovule. So this ovule, it develops a hard coat around itself and it forms the seed. So what is the seed part? Ovule is forming the seed. And what is the zygote part? This fusion here of egg cell and the male gamete, that is the this zygote which is resulting from this process, that is forming the embryo. This ovule is forming the seed part, and ovary is maturing into a fruit. So I told you three things here. Ovary is developing into a fruit, ovule is developing into a seed, and this zygote which is resulting from syngamy, it is developing into an embryo. Clear? These things are very important, that which part of the plant is developing into fruit and which part is developed into seed. So ovary is converted, ovary is developed into fruit, ovule is developed into seed, and this zygote is developed into an embryo. So after fertilization, zygote develops into embryo, ovule develops into seed, and the ovary develops into the fruit. अब जैसे हमारे पास fruit आ गया, now what will happen? All the sepals and the petals, they will shrivel off, they will fall off, because lastly we will be left only with the fruit. So petals, sepals, stamen, stigma, they fall off. Here, I hope this process is clear to you. Again, I am summarizing. Just listen it quickly. So pollen grains are landing on the stigma. They are absorbing the water and swelling. They are germinating into a pollen tube. Inside the pollen tube, two male gametes are formed. And when this pollen tube is entering the embryo sac from the micropyle, it as it penetrates inside the embryo sac, it ruptures and it releases two male gametes. So one of the male gamete is fusing with the egg cell here. That process is called syngamy, and the another male gamete is fusing with the two polar nuclei, and this process is called triple fusion. So along both these processes, triple fusion along with syngamy is termed as double fertilization. Simple, nothing to be worried of. So these cells, I'm repeating again, what are these cells? So we have three cells here. One in the center is egg cell. Two are synergids. They are providing, they are guiding the male gamete towards the egg cell, and another to the polar nuclei. So polar nuclei and male gamete, these three are fusing and they are forming the endosperm here. And this male and female egg cell is fusing together and forming the zygote. This polar nuclei and one male gamete is fusing. Three cells are fusing together to form endosperm that acts as stored food. And these three antipodal cells, which are on the top, they also provide nourishment to the growing embryo inside the seed, and they form the basis of the endosperm. Clear? This is the process. Now, so as I told you, so when fruit is formed from the flower, so then after petal, sepal, stamen, stigma fall off. वो गिर जाते हैं, and seed contains the future plant or embryo. Now, which develops? Now, what is germination? You all of you know what is germination. So germination is what? When seed develops into seedlings under appropriate conditions. So you know that if seed is kept on the table, it does not grow into a new plant. How it grows into a new plant? When you will provide appropriate favorable conditions to the seed, then only it will germinate and it will produce a seedling. So when seed is developing into seedlings under appropriate conditions, that process is called germination. Now this process is called germination, that is growth of the seed into a young plant or seedling. Now see what is this diagram here. So in your book, open up your book on page 135, there is one activity, activity 8.7. All of you open it up. On page 135, activity 8.7, read it out. Soak a few seeds of Bengal gram, chana. Chana dal, you know, we get easily at our homes. So chana dal, which is yellow in color. And if you take full black chana, so which has a covering also outside. So we have to take that full black chana, that Bengal gram chana, and keep them overnight. Drain the excess water and cover the seeds with a wet cloth and leave them for a day. So what will happen after 1 or 2 days? You have to cut open the seeds carefully and observe the different parts. First, make sure that the seeds do not become dry also, because if it gets dry, then it will not produce the seedlings. So then after 2 days, what you have to do is, after 2 days, you will get a structure like this structure. So see here, you can see two dents here, two structures which are coming out from this Bengal gram. So what are these two structures which are coming out? So one will go up, that will form the shoot part, and another will go down, that will form the root part. So when you will cut it open, you have to do it very carefully so that these structures should not get damaged. So when you will cut open these two parts, you will get two parts, two halves you will get, and these halves are called cotyledons. Okay, this is one cotyledon, this is a second cotyledon. So it is dicot, you can say, that you will study in higher classes, dicots and monocots. So if in the seed only one cotyledon is there, in some seeds are there, there is no partition. Okay, only one structure is there. So that is called monocot, one cotyledon. But here you see, when you cut open the chana dal, you get two pieces. So that is dicot. So these two halves, these are called cotyledons. And what are cotyledons? They are food stores. Okay, so they are food stores, and these two structures very important. Listen it very carefully. So the upper part, the upper structure, that is called plumule. What it is called? It is called plumule. Plumule. So it is known as the future shoot. Means it will give you leaves and flowers in future. So that will grow upwards, and the part which will grow down into the soil and form future roots, that is called radicle. So you can remember by RR. Radicle are root are. So radicle will form root and plumule will form shoot. Clear? This is very important. Plumule is the future shoot and radicle is the future root. Clear? So this was the sexual reproduction in plants. Now, after this, we have to study reproduction in human beings. So before I start, I want to say something that, see, this is important topic from your syllabus also, from your examination point of view also, and otherwise also. If I talk about, you all are science students. Okay, so being a science student, you need to have broad mindedness. Don't be narrow minded, because I know these kind of things, these things which we will be studying in this topic, they are not taken as that not to be discussed publicly. But being a science student, you have to be in confidence and no need to feel shy and embarrassed while studying these things. That what are these? Because I know some students will be making fun of these things, that oh, what ma'am is teaching and all that. But you have to consider these as a process which is going on, and you should know, you must have the knowledge what goes on inside the body. This is also one part of the body. You cannot say it is a natural process. And as we have studied nutrition, excretion, transportation, this is also one process of your body, that is reproduction. Okay, so I want you to have open minded when you study this topic, and you know that this sex education is as important for you to gain knowledge, for you to lead a healthy reproductive life in the future, for to avoid unwanted pregnancies and to know about sexually transmitted diseases. This is very important topic, because I know you people know much, but you don't know from the science, from the detailed things, that what are the processes, which what happens, how it happens. And sometimes you feel that there are changes in the body. You understand very well that your body is not the same as you were when you were a child of 2 3 years. And now as you are growing up, your body is growing up, changes are coming inside your body. Why are all these changes? Because your body is becoming sexually mature. So that's why it is important to study this process, and I want you to be open minded when we study this process. Clear? I hope you will cooperate and you will understand, because it is important to study all these things, to have this knowledge. Clear? Now, from the first I will take from the book on page 136. There's one page, one full page is there, that will just tell you the beginning. First of all, you should know about the changes, that what are the changes that takes place inside the body when the body starts developing and when the body becomes sexually mature. Yeah. So as I told you that your bodies are not the same when you were a small child. Now as the person grows up, there are so many changes in the bodies. Okay, it is not to shy, not to feel embarrassed. It is a natural human process. It happens in each and every individual, in each and every body. Okay, and don't to feel shy of this thing, because it is a natural process. It is all due to hormonal changes in the body. So there are some hormones which are responsible for the changes which are taking place in the body. So they are saying that there are some changes. So when you talk about general process of growth, so general process of growth means your height increases, Okay, so and so does our weight, height increases, weight increases. So that is general process of growth. And we acquire teeth, we lose the old so-called milk teeth and acquire new ones. So all of these are changes that can be grouped under the general process of growth. So general process of growth means increase in height, increase in weight, and losing the milk teeth and acquiring the new ones. But in early teenage years, in the teenagers, so some changes are there that cannot be explained simply as body enlargement. These are the changes in which the proportions change, new features appear in the body, and so do new sensations. New feelings come, new attitude, your behavior changes, attitude changes, sensations changes, feelings changes. So that all, why it is so, that is all because of the hormonal changes. Okay, so that the body becomes ready to reproduce, it becomes sexually mature, you can say. So in the first paragraph on page 136, go parallel with me on page 136, the first paragraph. I'm just telling you the basic crux of the paragraphs, that what is there. You can read it yourself. It is very simple. Simple wordings are there. So in the first paragraph, they are telling you general process of growth. Then in the second paragraph, they are telling you common changes. So there are some common changes which takes place in both boys and girls. Okay, some changes are there, like thick hair growing in new parts of the body such as armpits and the genital areas between the thighs, which can also become darker in color. Thinner hair can also appear on legs and arms as well as on the face. The skin frequently becomes oily and we might begin to develop pimples. It is the normal problem which youngsters face these things at the time of teenagers. When they enter the teenagers, they enter the adolescence. So we are talking about this. See, there is one age when all these characters appear in the body. So that age is called puberty. Okay, puberty. The topic of today's class is also, I told you, that double fertilization that we have covered. Now we are talking about puberty. I will share in the slides also, but let me finish in the book first. Then I will conclude what all were these were here in these paragraphs. So second paragraph are telling that there are some common changes in boys and girls. Skin becomes oily and pimples come, and we begin to be conscious and aware of both our own bodies and those of others in new ways. Okay, so that attraction feeling is there, so many things are there, so that is all natural. Okay, don't feel that what is happening to my body, nothing, it is natural process what is happening. So say there are some common changes which takes place in both boys and girls. And in the third paragraph they say, and there are some specific changes which happen specifically in boys and girls. First, common changes they are talking about, and then specific changes are also which appears in males and girls. So there are difference in boys and girls. In girls, breast size begins to increase with darkening of the skin at the breast. Also, girls begin to menstruate. Boys begin to have new thick hair growth on the face. Their voices begin to crack. Further, the penis occasionally becomes to become enlarged and erupt either in daydreams or at night. So why is it happening? It is all because of the hormones. You note down two hormones here because we have skipped the previous chapter, that is control and coordination. So two hormones. One is male hormone and one is the female hormone, which are responsible for these changes. So male hormone is testosterone. Testosterone, it is there in the slides also when we will study. So male hormone is testosterone, which is responsible for the changes in the boys, and the girls, there is one hormone that is called estrogen. Estrogen. Estrogen and progesterone, these two hormones are of females, which are responsible for the changes in the body at the time of puberty. Clear? Now next they are saying that why is it happening. कुछ में क्या होता है, in some persons these changes become they come early, in some persons they come lately, slowly. So it depends, it is not as a fixed rule that it will come in this stage, but it can be, because we have said that it is from 13 to 18 years of age it starts appearing. So in some it comes early, in some it comes late. That is all because of the heredity and the genes. It depends on what kind of genes you are inheriting from the parents. So that on that it depends. So some becomes mature early and some becomes mature lately. And some have, you also know that some different patterns of growth are there. You must have observed that some people have very thick coarse hair and some people they do not have hair on their arms and legs also. Okay, not only the private parts but other body parts also. If you talk about, some people have more coarse beard, some more thick hair on the face also, on the arms also, but some do not have. So it depends on the heredity and the genes. So one person vary from different from the other person. So these are all what, all of these changes are aspects of the sexual maturation of the body. So why are all these changes? All of these changes are what? These are all aspects of the sexual maturation of the body. So when all these characters are appearing in the body, so these are the signs that the body is becoming sexually mature. So why does the body show sexual maturation at this age? So we have talked about the need for specialized cell types in multicellular bodies. So I have told you about the germ cells. So they say that the creation of germ cells to participate in sexual reproduction is another specialized function. Okay, so see, there is one age, there is one number of age at which you grow in height. एक लिमिट तक, एक एज तक आपकी हाइट ग्रो करती है. आफ्टर दैट these secondary characters appears. It is written in the book in the second last paragraph. However, while the body, I'm reading the second last paragraph, and I think this is the sixth line. However, while the body of the individual organism is growing to its adult size, means first of all there is, see why these characters don't appear when we are small, because that